Mental illness's toll on Australia. Hello, my name is Michael. I'm a college attendant of the class Empowering Individual Health at Western Sydney University College. Today I'm going to discuss depression as a global health concern and discuss critical data points surrounding this health condition. I will also be discussing Australia's healthcare response, in addition to Singapore's healthcare response. The ICD code for depression is 9. Depression is a mood disorder that affects one's emotional behavior. It leads the individual to be in a permanent state of sadness. It influences how you feel, think, and act, and can prompt an assortment of emotional and physical problems, such as finding something you once found fun tiring and exhausting, loss of energy, sleeping too much or not being able to sleep at all, and changes in appetite. Although depression is a mental disease, it prompts a lot of physical problems as well, such as headaches and digestive problems. Depression is not caused by one difficulty in the individual's life, but rather built up stress. It can be due to stress of workload, stress of aging, bullying, or drug use. To determine if one does have depression, the individual must have signs and indications consistently for at any rate of 14 days. However, the features of this condition vary widely. According to US National Library of Medicine, May 12, 2020, depression most usually starts in late immaturity or early adulthood, despite the fact that it can show up at any age. If left untreated, episodes of depression can last for days, months, and even years. It can go back and come away as well. Depression affects the brain by not allowing the neurotransmitters in the brain to perform properly. Neurotransmitters allow for your senses to work. However, when depressed, the signals sent to the rest of your body start to become awry and don't work as well. Mental illness is very common in Australia. According to a study by the Black Dog Institute, April 1, 2020, 1 in 5 Australians aged 16 to 85 suffer from this disease. It has also been said that almost half of 45% of Australians will suffer from a mental illness. People aged 18 to 24 are most likely to suffer from mental illness. According to a survey by Australians Youth 2014, showed that around 1 in 5, 21.2% of young people aged 15 to 19 met the principle for a mental illness. Common mental illnesses in Australia are anxiety, 14%, depression, 6%, and substance use disorders, 5%. Black Dog Institute also states that 6 Australians take their life every single day due to a mental illness, and 30 Australians will attempt to take their life. Suicide is also the leading cause of death for Australians aged 25 to 44, and the second leading cause of death for people aged 15 to 24. 1 in 7 people will suffer from depression in their lifetime. Suicide is also the leading cause of death in Singapore for those aged 10 to 29. 397 lives are lost to suicide in 2018. A 2016 study by the Institute of Mental Health, December 11, 2018, showed that there was a rise in how many people suffered from a mental illness. The study showed an increase in the prevalence of mental illness from 12% in 2010 to 13.9% in 2016, a 1.9% increase in 6 years. Also, compared to a 2010 study by the Institute of Mental Health, December 2018, in 2010 there was no significant change in who sought help when suffering from mental illness. But in 2016, the percentage of people who did not seek help decreased from 82.1% to 78.4%. According to a study by World Health Organization, Australia is ranked 135th on the global scale for depression, and Singapore is ranked 95th. Mental illness places a huge toll on our country's government. This is because the country has to try and minimize the problem. The ideal goal would be to get rid of mental illness. However, this is very difficult to do as the country can only do so much to minimize the problem. In an effort to make ends meet, the government spent 9.9 million on mental health in 2017 to 18. However, there has been no significant decrease from 2018 to 2020. 4.3 million people received mental health related prescriptions from 2018 to 2019. Depression is also a country level of burden disease because of the way it spreads. If a parent was suffering with mental illness and their children witnessed this, it is most likely that their kids would be sad and suffer with their own type of depression. Depression also leads people to suicide. People take their own lives because they feel as they can no longer stop the pain of their hopelessness. However, once a person does commit suicide, the pain is almost passed on to 5 more people. If a son or daughter committed suicide, their pain would be passed on to their mom, dad, brothers, sisters, relatives, and friends. They would blame themselves for not being there and supporting you during this time, and would blame themselves. Since depression spreads like this, the government has a hard time controlling it because if they prevent half of suicides in the world, the other half would affect more people, then they would be able to stop. Some people cannot even afford the cost of depression treatments. If you are a low to medium income, chances you cannot afford the treatment for your mental illness. In Singapore, the problem is the same. The cost of mental illness treatments in Singapore is $9.90 per month. This adds up to 11,000. It is even worse in private hospitals, as people can be charged up to 200,000 a year. People simply don't have this money. Singapore spends 3.1 billion on stress-related illnesses annually. In Singapore, there is a huge stigma on mental illnesses. Asking your boss for a day off because you are suffering from mental illness can be seen as not a valid reason. This places people who are suffering from depression at an even worse state. They cannot express their feelings because they are too feared to be silently judged. A survey was conducted by Relationships Australia July 2018 and 2016 July, where 1,600 people responded to the Relationship Australia online survey, found out information using graphs. 86% of people recorded that they found mental health services always useful or sometimes useful. Less men, 76% of men, responded that they're always or sometimes useful, and 10% of men responded that health services are rarely useful. 66% of women and 55% of men responded that they know where to go to get support for themselves. However, 25% of men and 15% of women responded that they do not know where to go to receive help for themselves. 41% of women and 32% of men reported that they can sometimes afford mental health services, and 32% of women and 31% of men cannot afford mental health services. Despite this, a report commissioned by the Royal Australia and New Zealand College of Psychiatrists estimated that in 2014, Australia spent 56.7 billion on mental health services, a cost that could have only risen since then. Singapore have spent 3.1 billion on health services. However, this has not led to many changes in both of their countries. Australia have implemented many different programs to make you feel okay, make you feel more comfortable, such as the Kids Healthline, Beyond Blue, Lifeline, Black Dog Institute, and many more. Australians have also realized this is a problem and have started their own campaigns. The Are You OK movement is a non-profit organization that revolves around asking people if they are okay. It allows people to start conversation. This movement is also common in schools where they advocate this. Singapore has not made any improvements in responding to this disease, as they have one of the highest rates of depression disorders. There are many government and NGO services available in Singapore, like as services that don't seem to be helping Singapore. Social stigma seems to be one of Singapore's greatest challenges for people who are suffering from a mental illness. Australia is much more accepting about depression, so it allows Australians to be more open about their feelings. In conclusion, depression doesn't affect one's life considerably because of the symptoms, and while Australia is much more accepting about mental illnesses in their country, this allows for people to speak about their feelings. The stigma in Singapore for mental illness doesn't allow people to speak about their feelings openly. Both Australia and Singapore spent a considerable amount on supporting this problem. However, the problem still remains. Thank you for listening.